Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works in the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and we have way too many people today, and one of those people is Ian.
Yes. Hey, I'm WeiryWriter on the forums. I'm a bad fan and didn't finish my homework for this episode.
You got through about like 80% of it, so you got a gold star. Also joining me, clearly where the three realms come together, it's Evgeni, and I think Adolin, Shallan, and Kaladin are gonna come out of your blinds any moment now.
You cannot have my pain. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, currently my
got...
pain is in my eyeballs from looking at that. So
you should be used to it by now.
I am.
Hi, I'm Argent.
Hi. Also joining me is Grace.
Hello, I'm Gator Girl. I don't have a really fun intro today. I'm sorry.
No, you clearly don't. You clearly don't. Also joining me is Ben.
I had done no prep for this episode. I haven't read Oathbringer in like 6 months. This is gonna be a great one for me.
Yeah. You did a reread.
I feel better.
You did a reread.
Oh, high five. I have read Oathbringer like 4 times. I think I have opinions.
Okay, great.
Good.
Lastly, we have Shannon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greywatch, and I finished my first reread 2 days ago. It doesn't feel like enough.
And I'm Chaos. I finished my reread last night, but in my defense, I had read it twice before it came out. So,
Same.
Mm.
That's ooh.
But it's been a very long time since I've fully read the book, so it was good to reread. So today, guys, we are going to do a Oathbringer retrospective. Hilariously, we thought we would do it at the 1 year mark after Oathbringer came out, but that did not occur. Good job. It's kind of my fault, really. So now it's like 1.5 years after Oathbringer came out.
So the plan is we just delay this episode long enough
To be the 2-year anniversary.
No, this one needs to come out this month.
What this actually is that we're doing it at the 10-month mark, so it's a Rosharan year since the release.
Is it 10 months?
Perfect. It's been 500 days. I haven't looked it up, and the viewers don't know when we record this, but it's been 500 days. Trust me.
It's not 10 months at all.
No, it's not. But 500 days might be closer.
Yeah.
10 Rosharan months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So I just looked it up.
Uh-huh.
When
was 500 days? When's 500 days?
October 19th, 2017.
What?
Wait.
What?
That makes no.
Wait.
What are you talking about?
Okay, Arjun got this very wrong. 500 days is
no, what's
is
500?
the
When's
29th
500?
of March. 29th of March. So literally, like, probably the week we actually might release this on the 500 days after. Because it's the 29th of March.
Do you really want to do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hell
absolutely.
And you have to
Hell
keep
yeah.
all of this in.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
When did Oathbringer come out?
November 14th, 2017.
Where did you get October 19th?
Yeah, where did you just
No, he
pull that
was
from?
And more importantly, why did you say 2017? That's not 500 days.
I think he was doing 500 days back from where you said, which took me a minute to get in my. I was like 500 days after November in 2017 is not a month earlier.
No, I'm
It's not
doing
a-
500 days back from today.
Oh
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I did.
right.
I did Oathbringer plus 500 days.
Yeah, that's the sensible way.
Yeah.
The far more logical thing to do.
Because then we have like an actual date and don't have to do additional mathematics.
Oh, well.
Wait, why would you, Eric? Why have you of all people would not want to do additional mathematics?
Math isn't about numbers, Ben.
Okay.
No.
Math is
That's
about
all
logic,
it is.
not about numbers. I know what I want to do, therefore it's basically already done.
That's really funny.
So, after a fun and exciting interlude, we actually will get it so that this episode airs actually 500 days after Oathbringer came out.
One Rosharan
None
year.
of you say anything about the fact that Rosharan days are different lengths than Earth days.
That's true.
Let's move on.
500 days. That's not what this episode is about. Actually, this episode's about the Rosharan calendar. Actually, and only the Rosharan calendar.
Joffrey is going to be so mad.
He will actually be very upset. So, because Oathbringer was not, I guess, universally loved, we wanted to go back and see how did we feel and how did we, what changed since the first time we read it or the last time we read it, and how are we feeling now that the new luster has worn off and that we know odium appears and that all the stuff that we got. We've all come to terms that is a thing that occurs. So let's do some hot takes. Let's talk about what we liked. What did you think about Oathbringer originally, and how do you feel about it now? And I am going to start with Grace.
Ooh. Okay, so originally,
Yes.
I really loved it. I still really love it.
Uh-huh.
I think I have different problems with it on the reread. The things I didn't like the first time, I didn't mind as much on my reread, and certain things I didn't mind as much the first time, I had problems with on the reread.
Cool. We will talk about all specific issues very soon in pedantic Shardcast detail. Don't worry. Ben, what did you think?
On my original read, I really liked it. I did have some issues with it, which kind of stayed. Doing my rereads, I discovered that doing like 3 rereads of a 1,500-page book within the space of is a terrible idea. You get sick of the book.
That is true. It's like if you watch a movie too many times near release, it just kills it for you. Yeah.
I was doing it because I was writing videos for it, and then things got in the way of my life, so which were then cancelled because they were really hard to make videos.
To be fair, they were.
And so upon reading it, I was just sick of the book. But I mean, I still really like it. But yeah, that's my opinion right now. Is that I'm like, I probably won't read it again for a long time.
Okay.
Years.
Maybe before book 4, maybe, but
maybe.
not before then.
I probably will. Yeah, I'll probably do it for book 4, but not before then.
Yeah. Shannon, what do you think?
Originally, God, even looking back, I don't know what my first opinion of it was because I was so tired.
That's true. You what did you do? You cranked through the entire thing in a day, or everything but part 1?
I woke up at 4 a.m. and couldn't get back to sleep.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, screw it. I feel terrible. I just clicked. I had the pre-order at a physical store, but I was like, screw it. So I bought on Kindle and then just got up and started reading. And I sat there for about 14, 18 hours, whatever. And then by the end, it was sort of like, what was my emotion? I didn't have emotions by the time I finished it. So it was,
you gave the book your pain?
So it was like, I was like, everything was very new and exciting. And it was like, how can you say no to all the new and exciting things?
Yeah,
It was just a lot of screaming. And so on the reread, I was surprised to find I kind of liked it better in some ways than my first read.
Because you didn't have to blaze through it.
Yeah, I didn't have to blaze through it. I was actually like taking the time to actually enjoy it. So it was, by the time I got to the end of the second reread, I was just outpour of love. I love it. Yeah.
Great. Evgeni, what do you think?
I am in a position not too similar from Gray's, Shannon's.
Well done.
Unintended.
How many podcasts have we done?
No. I meant like Gray 'S.
Okay. Right.
I gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, the Gray and Grace thing. That's why you got to use Shannon.
I thought you were mixing up Grace and Shannon's name. And
No.
Okay.
Come on, man. Come on. No.
I love my username a lot, but you got to use Shannon.
Yeah, well, that's true.
It's a problem. Greywatches. So yeah, I went through the book not quite as fast because I'm not quite as fast of a reader. The first time around, took a couple of days off work and just spent all of them reading. And at the end of the first read, I was exhausted. Like, I knew I liked the book. I knew there were like big reveals that I loved and things like that, but I was just tired. and this happens to me. It is a big boy.
Very big.
This happens to me after every Brandon book where I read the novel. I read the book and I just get a book hangover where I can't read anything that's not Brandon for a while.
Yeah.
Oathbringer just gave me the biggest book hangover I've ever had. Like for half a year plus, I could not touch anything to read. And I'm still not back to my normal reading pace. But after a reread again, I got to enjoy things without the stress of, okay, I need to get this done ASAP.
I got fierce theorizing to do. I got to play soon.
There was, I had to be done, because the forums and chats were moving.
They were moving very fast, very fast. It was ridiculous.
I felt a little pressured to like the book more than I think I did, because I kept hearing from beta readers how good it was.
Yeah.
And on a purely emotional level, I liked Words of Radiance better.
Okay.
Like the end works better for me. And I think it took me a reread of Oathbringer to realize that. So there are things about Oathbringer that I love that Words of Radiance doesn't do as well, but they're kind of more exposition-y, explanatory connections in the wider world thing. As an emotional response, the ending of Words of Radiance works better for me.
We're definitely going to compare Stormlight books in this episode, and
Yes.
so that is great to hear. And that was a big question for me as well. Ian, what did you think?
So, when I first read Oathbringer, I really liked it. When I reread it for the first time, I still really liked it, and I still really like it. So, reserving the fact that I technically haven't finished this reread, so my opinions could change in the last 400 pages or however long I have left. I don't know. I read a lot
really
this
busy.
morning.
You did read a lot this morning. You got to almost through part 4 from part 2.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So, but what I've really been liking so far in my reread is I'm picking up on the little thing, like little bits of foreshadowing and turns of phrase that I just never picked up, which I'm appreciating that a lot.
Definitely.
I feel like that's a big thing in Brandon rereads. Finding those little things that in retrospect are like, oh my god.
It's so funny just rereading chapter 1, where it talks about the champion with 9 shadows, Kolinar, and that's what it's about.
It's a dense chapter 1.
It also
Not
names drops
even-
the Unmade as well.
Yeah.
But not even the big foreshadowing like that. It's the fact that there's more to Spren than what you see in the physical realm is foreshadowed twice, once by Rock and once by Kaza, long before they get to
True.
Yeah, that was great.
And then unique bits of world building, turns of phrase. There's one point where there's a sunset and it's described as shining ruby and topaz light over a valley, which
Yes,
that's
yeah.
totally how Rosharans would describe this.
Yeah. The writing, it just feels
Ah.
Rosharan. Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
does though.
And
I
that's
love
something
that.
Brennan has been getting better with over time, because we
Yep.
really don't see that in Elantris or Mistborn Era 1.
Yeah.
But
We get some Ash stuff in Era 2, but yeah, Era 1 is it's
Yeah.
the little things.
Definitely.
It tends to work better in Stormlight, but it also helps that the world of Stormlight is so out there.
It's
that-
so different that you can't use dirt metaphors.
Yeah.
So what are
Yeah.
you gonna do, right?
unless you're foreshadowing.
Well, right. And the first read, I said Oathbringer was my favorite book. I am a person highly influenced by endings. If I love the ending, I love the book. It literally doesn't even matter what happened in the book. If the ending's good, I like it. If the ending's bad, I hate it. And I loved Words of Radiance's ending, and I'm like, how could Brandon top this? And the ending for Oathbringer is so insane, and just it really puts the epic in epic fantasy. It's just, whoa, this is just, I couldn't have conceived this happening at the end of Words of Radiance. Like, I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
That something like this could happen, that we could meet so many unmade when they really hadn't been relevant. And just Dalinar's arc, I'm like, oh, yeah, so good. Best use of flashbacks in Stormlight yet, I think, because it really fit. Dalinar's recollecting his memories, and you're getting those flashbacks, and so it felt essential that flashbacks needed to occur. Whereas some... Go ahead.
A lot of the flashbacks in Oathbringer were triggered by something happening in real time. The prodding of a beast scene, where he goes back to that quote from Sadius.
And a
couple of others.
It just feels so natural.
Yeah, it was really important that, like, you're learning it at the same time that Dalinar's remembering it. It's sort of like, you're not, this isn't stuff that the character has always known necessarily in the same way that Kaladin's say was. It was, this is new information to Dalinar as well. And that made it feel just so much more impactful.
And organic.
Yeah. Whereas some people do criticize Stormlight. Like, did we need that many flashbacks? And I've always liked the flashbacks, but this one, the flashbacks are integral to the story.
Yeah. Because, like, in Way of Kings, it's, they're almost, you just learn Kaladin as kind of, Kaladin goes on this journey, and you're kind of just seeing the end, well, not the end result, but you're seeing where he is now compared to where he was in the past. They don't really gel together too much. And then in Words of Radiance, you're kind of seeing a build up for truths that for herself. So they are kind of tied in a little bit with the plot of the actual book, but not as much as, but then in Oathbringer, it is like, they are integral. Like, you are learning things as the characters are learning things at the same time. And I noticed there's a few times where Dalinar will collapse because he's remembered something, and then you won't go back to Dalinar until we've had like 3 flashbacks to tell us
seriously,
what it is that he's just remembered. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, Evie died. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Which makes me very interested to see how it's going to work with Book 4.
Yes.
Where the flashback character is dead.
Yeah, that's very true. So I originally was like, Oathbringer is my favorite book. Words of Radiance was my previous favorite book. Now Oathbringer is my favorite book. I don't know if it is anymore. Words of Radiance and Oathbringer are really close. The highs hit me just as good as they always have for Oathbringer. Like, Odium shows up, I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Elhokar dying, all the, like,
That's a high moment for you?
I thought it was great. Well, yeah, it was a great moment. Yeah. No, I love when characters go through pain. Like, Evie dying, oh, that was good. Like, it's a high moment in that you get a big emotional reaction, right? And it's not like...
Odium.
Look, Odium...
That's not far off.
I would transform this realm substantially. That's what I'm saying. So, I don't know if I like this better than Words of Radiance, because Words of Radiance was just so very tight, and this one is less tight, but...
God, you like it differently.
I like it. They're different. They're very different books.
They definitely are.
Yeah.
So what I think is like kind of like the bigger difference for me between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer is that the scope of Oathbringer goes bigger.
Yes.
It's the unmade. It's Odium showing up. It's all of a sudden the things that they were like, oh, this is going to happen, and then it finally happens in Oathbringer. So it was really satisfying for me personally, like because it was like this is the promise being delivered. This is the things that they were talking about actually happening. And then that's what it was for me. It's sort of the first 2 Stormlight books are still kind of setting up and getting ready, and then Oathbringer is just opening the door. Here we are. This is the scope of the battle here.
Yeah.
It's Oathbringer is finally fulfilling some of the promises Brandon was making in the first 2 books. It's like,
Yeah.
we needed all of that set up so we could have this story.
Odium's
Yeah.
coming, and yeah. We
in regards to comparing it, like how it how it sits with me right now, I actually do still think Words of Radiance is my favorite, because for me, Words of Radiance is like, oh, you guys should read this book because there's a really cool arena fight in the middle of it, and everything else is like window dressing, like build up and then fall out of it. And it's like the rest of it. And right now at this point, the entire of the Stormlight Archive for me is, by the way, there's this really good arena fight in the middle of it, and everything else is just really good window dressing. I'm like, so
yeah, I mean,
Radiance.
that was really awesome.
It's like one of my favorite scenes in fiction ever, and like, even though some stuff in Oathbringer does like top that in terms of like epicness, or you think like in terms of, oh crap, really cool things are happening and people actually might legitimately die, and it's all like I care really much about every second of what's happening right now. Oathbringer never really reached that kind of intensity for me, even during like, you know, the just before the Battle of Thalen Fields, you know, with the whole "you will not have my pain" and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think Words of Radiance is still my favorite.
See, yeah, I guess I didn't really feel like characters were going to die in Oathbringer. I can go with that, but the biggest
Except
fear,
for when they do.
well, yeah, the biggest fear reading Oathbringer is you just think Dalinar could turn, right? Like,
Yeah,
and-
that was me the whole time. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this in a previous episode somewhere, but when I was reading the climax, so the way the ending is shaped, you have a scene in, I think, still chapter 119, where Odium is just assaulting Dalinar with memories and requests to turn in.
this is 118, I think, but yeah.
Maybe it's 118, and then it switches to Zeth's POV, where he's flying above them all with Nail, and they're discussing Zeth's third ideal, and Zeth goes, "Hey, can I follow somebody?" And they're looking at Dalinar, so it's obvious that he's thinking about Dalinar, even though they haven't vocalized that yet. And at the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh crap, if Dalinar turns,
Yeah, this is true.
we now have Zeth with Nightblood on Odium's side.
I was thinking the same
Boy.
thing my first read through. Oh man, so terrified.
Terrified.
I was like, oh no, I can see what he's lining up here. No.
No, no. It's a very different book. I think one of the complaints is that the scale was so crazy. It works for me that the book is about the unmade, and just seeing the cleverness on, oh yeah, no, we can trap a big spren, and about the thrill made that moment where Dalinar finally traps the thrill. Like, yes,
Yeah.
and saves everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the pieces were lined up so perfectly so that when it happens, you're like, of course.
It
Of
had
course
to
he's
be
gonna-
this way. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a well foreshadowed.
It's so expertly foreshadowed, and I feel like there's tons of foreshadowing for later books in this book that we are just not getting at all at this current moment, that we'll reread and be like, whoa, he just
He did
foreshadowed
that.
this. I just didn't
Well,
even
there's
notice.
the line in one of the listener songs that is completely recontextualized after you read Oathbringer. I don't remember which
one?
one it is.
Which one? You can't just say
Oh,
that.
come on, you can't just say that.
I know, I'm
Fine.
looking.
Where,
Fine.
Is it the one
find
about
it.
the humans and the surges?
So I did find it. It's the 12th stanza of the Song of Histories, which is the epigraph for chapter 30. "'Tis said it was warm in the land far away when Voidbringers entered our song.
yeah,
He brought them home to stay, and then those homes became their own. It happened gradually. In years ahead, 'twill still be said, 'tis how it has to be."
yep, that.
It
What
was,
can
it
you
was
say?
warm.
There you go.
Warm and Ashen.
There you go.
So, how about, before we talk about a lot of specific moments of things we liked and didn't like, I'd like to talk about some overall book things on how you felt the pacing of this book went, because a lot of people were like, it was slow. Some people said that this book had a lot of filler, and that Kolinar's slow or Shadesmar's slow. Things like that. Yes, Shannon.
I have an opinion.
Yes.
Okay. This I did not have an opinion on pacing on my first read through. But on the second time, I don't think Kolinar or Shadesmar were slow. I had a really hard time digging into parts 1 and 2. I don't know why. They just felt a little slower, but by the time they finally started moving, going to Kolinar, that's when things started falling, and I could finally found the momentum of like, okay, things are happening.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it did take me a while to actually get into the flow of reading Oathbringer, particularly part 1.
Yeah,
Where it's like I would read it, I would be invested when I was reading it, but like going back to it was hard.
you could put it down, and then it was really easy to not pick it up again. Yeah.
I think I completely agree with part 2. I feel actually I really liked part 1 in terms of pacing. I think it's the closest we've got to it's almost a standalone novel, like within a book. It feels the most like beginning, middle, and end of any of the parts of any of the books.
It really is.
Part 2, I struggled through pretty much on every reread, because I'm like, as much as I like getting to know Bridge 4, because you're constantly switching back and forth, person to person, I'm like, oh, it's the Tef chapter. Oh, it's the Dunny chapter. Does Dunny get chapter? Is it Dunny dead?
No, actually, I kind of had the opposite.
Dead.
Dunny dies in the Way of Kings.
The Bridge 4 chapters were the ones I found easiest to get through, actually. That's interesting.
Okay. I found part 2 was just nothing happens. Like really, like, because like I said, it was the one that I was writing a thing about, and so I was writing about all the events that happen. I'm like, character stuff happens, things happening. Nothing actually happens in part 2 until Odium turns up at the end, which redeems the whole thing.
Well, I think that part is it's about learning about Bridge 4 and politicking. And so if you don't like those two things, like Dalinar's whole thing is uniting people and trying to get this coalition together, and he's bringing people through the visions. We're not like getting a lot of fluff because he's sending people through, but I can understand if you're not into all the politicking, that gets really slow. Yeah, Grace?
Okay, so the first time I read this book, I thought parts 3 and 4 were slow. I did not have that problem this time. I thought this time they moved very well. I thought, in particular, Kaladin's arc in part 1 felt slow to me.
How so?
Oh, yes.
I don't. It just felt like that. I'm just trying to. I mean, I read this this was part 1. I read this like a week ago.
These faces need to be on the thumbnail.
A lot of other things have happened in reading since then, so I don't remember. I just remember a distinct feeling of when reading those chapters, wanting to kind of skim through them a bit more, kind of like knowing what happened. They were less interesting to me.
Because the mystery is about the Voidbringers, and when you know exactly what happens,
sure. And also just like having an entire chapter of like Kaladin getting to know the singers by like teaching them cards or whatever, like I just felt like that was kind of slow, like knowing how that whole thing ends, I was like, I don't really care about this.
Half these
My thing, Shallan's chapters in parts 1 and 2 were the ones I could not get through. I find she gets better when we get to Kolinar, but I think it's like what Grace was saying. It's like I know what happens. It's not interesting. So I like Dalinar and politics. I like Bridge 4. I don't like Shallan's beginning chapters in this book. It's
with Shallan goes through some very interesting psychological stuff during this book, and it's not until book 3 where a lot of that really is like, oh wait, no, like serious weird stuff is going on here. It's like you should be paying attention. Before that, it's just like I remember in my first read, I'm like, I was very concerned for Shallan, but it's like,
yes,
what's going on? And then part 3 happened. It's like, okay, no, like I should be concerned at this point. Bad stuff is happening.
Yeah. There was,
and then like after that, she does start to work through it a little bit. Once she has her conversation with Hoyd,
Yes.
Yeah.
stuff like she starts improving-ish.
I'd say so.
She starts getting her feet. That's how I
Mhm.
would say it. She's not improving, I would say, but she's stabilizing.
She's
I
not
mean,
getting
that's-
worse.
It's a part of the improvement.
Yeah.
Getting better.
What is Shannon's doing part 2 again? I actually can't remember.
Yeah,
Not a lot.
Does she do anything?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I just
She has a
remember
hard
not much
time
happened.
adjusting to being Yasna's ward again.
Yeah.
Adjusting
It's
to
the-
being Yasna's ward, but also being a Knight Radiant, and also being the person who kicked out an unmade from the house.
Yeah.
And then it was also interesting to have Yasna come back and get her perspective, not just on what Shallan is doing now, but what she was doing on part 1. It's a totally different perspective from what Shallan was thinking of herself. She's like, I was doing so great. I was, I'm learning to be an adult. And then Yasna comes in and is like, you don't show up for meetings. You leave them early. You don't pay attention. You don't do the things that people ask you to do. What's going on?
You don't take notes.
Yeah.
It was really frustrating to read Shallan just
Refuse to
Revert.
take notes?
well.
Dudo Kaladin.
Oh my god, the doodling Kaladin.
I found that amusing, but I just like we've seen Shallan do so many things, and why are you just acting this way? It makes sense, but it's just very frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
God.
Shallan in part 2 was one of the things that in the first time I read it, I was so frustrated and annoyed by. This time I actually didn't mind it. I found myself actually kind of frustrated with Yasna a few times in part 2, which made me more sympathetic to Shallan as well, I think.
How so?
Just like, I mean, it makes sense for Yasna, but like the way she came back and she expected nothing to have changed, which really annoyed me.
That's true.
But that makes sense for Yasna.
Yes.
That's kind of who she is. And when we get into her head a couple times, we see that like she's very unsure of herself at this point, because for so long she was at the forefront and now she feels she's playing catch up. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that she's like falling back on like you are my ward, like you do what I tell you.
Yeah.
The
So,
thing that was frustrating for me was that Yasna gave Shallan opportunities to explain,
True.
and Shallan refused to take them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was just too much for me.
Mhm.
It was, I understand, like it's really hard. That level of adjustment is really hard to do, but I feel like Shallan came out on the worst of it than Yasna did.
That was probably the most annoying thing about part 2 for me, because I liked the Bridge 4 ones. Rock's Bridge 4
Really?
chapter is so long
Mhm.
that I
I liked
like
it.
it, but it's so long.
What number is that?
I don't know.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's
It's-
long.
Isn't it the
Really?
f-
I didn't think it was long.
It's one
It's
of the
so-
longest chapters.
Yeah, it's a
Is
huge
it?
chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It was
massive.
Yeah.
a blink. It was a blink. Just
Isn't it the first Bridge 4 one as well?
No,
I
Sigil's
think it's
the
the
first.
No.
second.
And
How is the Rock chapter so long though? He just like he gives the Spren Stormlight and then his family arrive. Like what else happens to make it so
It's
long?
There's like
really
a-
long.
Yeah.
He
He-
talks.
He
There's
talks
the
a lot.
cooking. There's Hoyo.
Yeah, there's cooking.
There's
He's
and
talking with
Hoyo.
Renarin.
Been setting up.
Yeah, he's reflecting on basically like the state of Bridge 4, and like it's sort of like the first. Brock's the only one who like understands like the emotional psychological stuff that's going on with the group. No
Yeah.
one else is as reflective as Rock is.
It's great to read his prose, which is hilarious, but it's just a long chapter.
I don't
I
remember it being long.
loved Moash's stuff in part 2. I always liked Moash.
I have a thought. I like the Moash chapters. I don't like reading them mixed in with the other chapters of part 2. I think they work better if you. In my opinion, I think they work better if you read them separately together.
I kind of like if he was the interlude character, even though the timelines wouldn't work for that.
Well, I guess, Grace, is
Yeah.
you're just imagining it being the novella that Brandon wrote straight through, because Brandon writes these all like he writes a character and does the whole part and then intersperses them. And
Yeah. So for me, I think it just breaks the flow. So when I was doing my reread, what would happen is I would hit a Moa chapter, and I'd start and I'd be like, I don't want to read this. So I'd set it down and do something else for a while, and then I'd pick it back up. And when I picked it back up, I loved the chapter. I think they just, reading them in sequence mixed in with part 2 just kind of made me, it broke the flow of what was going on a bit for me.
Absolutely. I distinctly remember the picture of the bridge forearm with the thing torn off filled me with dread every time, because I was like, oh great, it's another Noah chapter. Like, but then you'd read it and it was fine, but like you kind of want to get back to what's going on in Ethereum. Like,
it's not that I thought that Moash's like the content of the chapters, like the actual plot of the chapters was dragging it down. It was Moash's entire personality that was dragging me down. Because everything about him was sort of like, nothing matters. It's all bad.
Everything's
awful. This would have made you angry at another thing, but I don't care. I'll just do the work, like this humiliating work, and it's fine. I'm just a slave again, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, I'm going to get out of your chapter and go back to someone more fun.
Evgeni, what do you think?
That's so what I was going to say is similar to that. When I finished Oathbringer, Dalinar's journey and the lessons he learned are, I suspect they're going to be things that are going to stay with me for a very, very long time. Obviously not necessarily applicable in the direct sense, because I don't expect the dark gods to show up and ask me.
You don't murder your wife and set an entire city on fire when you do?
Yet.
Wait, you
I'm
still
young. Still young.
Technically, it's only manslaughter. He didn't intend to kill his wife.
That's true.
Yeah, but he also manslaughtered. Well, he murdered a lot of other people, and
yes,
his
he murdered
wife
a lot
was
of
there.
other people.
That's a different category. That's called war crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not your court. That's the Hague.
My coffee mug says, "Hubby, you guys see a wifey anywhere?"
It's
anyway,
dark.
Anyway,
so dark.
So, in the direct sense, not necessarily applicable, but this book, a lot more than the previous two, gave me a kind of a innate understanding I can relate to on the whole journey before a destination.
Yes.
And Dalinar's oaths, most important step a man can take, always the next one. This entire kind of package of lessons, those things resonate with me a lot.
Yeah.
And so every time I go to a Moash chapter where he does not that, it just eats me on the inside. Like, every time he wants to give up, every time he says this is not my fault, every time he refuses to do anything about anything, even though there's a very nice parallel where he helps the Parshmen or the Singers in the same way that Kaladin does early on. Outside of that, everything else is just, I feel personally attacked by the kind of nonsense he does and says, and I hate that.
I wonder if Ian's about to say what I'm about to say.
Let's find out.
We'll see. But it's like, the reason I liked Moash's chapters is because it is a direct counterpoint to what is in Dalinar's. It's like, there's a line in his Moash's last chapter, I believe, an ancient singer's name. "Let go, Moash," something deep within him whispered. "Give up your pain. It's all right. You did what was natural. You can't be blamed. Stop carrying that burden. Let go." And Moash does, where Dalinar takes that next step.
Yeah.
And becomes a better man.
Like, Moash is really hard to get through, and I'm not going to say I like him or his chapters, but he was very necessary. Because what I think makes Dalinar's story more powerful is to realize how hard it is. Sometimes I think we see heroes do, like, quote unquote, the hard thing, but we, when we're like, oh, of course, everyone should do the right thing, and da-da-da-da, it doesn't really sink in.
You don't have a context.
Yeah, the context. But like seeing someone else who's in a lot of pain and who has that same choice, and it's really, really hard, I feel like that just actually makes Dalinar's side of it more powerful. Like, Moash is definitely a foil here to the theme of the book. And we see that it how destructive the easy way is, but it is the easy way. It is kind of natural. In some ways, it doesn't feel natural or easy to do what Dalinar did.
No, I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, I really like that point.
I was just thinking about this as I was reading the book, that this book, though it has a lot of lore, and it does have a lot of things happen, this is really a character book. Like, it's so strongly a character book. It's about Dalinar and the lies he tells to himself to make him into a better man, right? And coming to terms with what the truth actually is. Yeah. Shallan dealing with lots of lies.
All with Shallan.
Yeah, with Shallan. And Kaladin dealing with the lie, not really a lie, but just the idea that, oh, you can protect everyone. Like, yeah, and he's struggling with that. Mm-hmm. And that really resonated with me, that those three struggles are kind of connected. And I think, and please feel free to comment below if you feel differently, but I think people who believe that this book has a lot of filler they're not liking that character drama and that exploration, and they're just like, oh my god, Shallan, just holy crap, or oh my god, Kaladin just were the fourth ideal, and things like that. So it's very much a character piece.
It's like if you're not buying into the characters,
then you're not going to like it, right? Like, because that's what it's about. And if you don't like that, you're not going to like the book, which makes sense.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I realized that pretty much all of the book, definitely most of the book, is about 1, failure, 2, accepting the failure, and 3, how do you move on from there? Yeah. And some characters are still in the process of, like, some characters are in one of those steps.
Yeah.
And some characters have now passed that stage where Moash he's realized he's failed, and he's kind of accepted that, but he's decided that it's not his fault. And so now he's in that stage. And Dalinar is in the phase where he's failed, he's accepted that. Now he wants to do better.
He will be better, yeah.
Yeah.
And Kaladin is kind of in the I am accepting phase. And Shallan, I feel like, has just moved past. Yeah, I know I messed up. How do we get better from here?
I think Shannon's still in the accepting stage, because she kind of is between the whole, oh, I murdered my parents, oh, I don't like thinking about it, I should really think about this a bit more.
Yeah, she's kind of on the cusp.
Yeah. I like this perspective of, like, accepting failure, because that's one of the things Hoyd is telling to Shallan in Coldenars. Like, to live is to fail.
Hoyd knows about failure really well.
If you never fail at anything, did you really ever live? Yeah. Which is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing I am kind of struggling with in my everyday life, where for a long time I have been doing things correctly or perfectly the first time around. And so for several years now, I am terrified of trying anything new, because I know I will probably not be very good at it and I will fail, and I don't want to deal with that.
New things are scary. Like,
change is scary.
Yeah.
Like, it was, not to go on a personal tangent, but Evgeni, I'm with you there.
High five.
Big change is scary. Yeah.
No, Evgeni, like, when you were talking about that, I'm really excited to dive into the theme of the book being failure, and that was something I was eager to talk about today. I was actually going to go a different direction, but you convinced me differently, so now I'm all now. Dang it. No, because what I was going to say was that we see people failing, but then I feel like in part 5, it kind of gives people a chance, I think, like, as you say, to try again, to have that success. Kaladin's breakdown in part 4, when he's talking about how he can't save Dalinar is given the chance that as soon as Dalinar gives him the chance with the perpendicularity, and then the first thing that Kaladin's first task is to guard Dalinar. So it was sort of like the opportunity to do it again. And Shallan's failure in Kholinar, and then part 5, she's given the chance to save an entire city. And then she kind of like she kind of lampshades that and in the after battle, she's like, she does it like in a Shallan like glib way. She's like, oh look, half the city's standing this time. Maybe we'll finally get on to like actually saving people for real. But like that in her mind, you could see her like this was a better version of what happened in Kholinar.
Yep.
And obviously Dalinar's story in part 5 speaks for itself. But that's what I really liked about this book, was that it's not just a story of like, oh, people failed. It's a story of people failed and are given the opportunity to try again. And then then people can succeed at like the second, the third, et cetera times.
Masters the try-fail cycle.
Yeah.
Brandon sometimes talks about. It's like, oh yeah, there is failure, and we're gonna have those try-fail cycles for sure.
But it would just be a really different book if part 5 wasn't the way that it was. Part 5 was so triumphant. It was so triumphant. It was so there.
That's kind of a branding thing. Like
I love that though. That's what I love about his writing.
The triumph is even more than Words of Radiance to me.
Yeah.
That is probably true. Yeah.
Yeah. So going off your idea of like getting a second chance, like that goes back into what's the most important step a man can take? The next one. It's like trying again.
It's gonna fail, but you should work to be better.
Yeah. You know what also is like another line that I didn't realize was almost as important as like the next step was that something that also I think I missed my first time was like this idea in Dalinar's story. It was also 2 kind of questions that he was struggling with. It wasn't just what's the most important step a man can take. It was also like I'm going to forget the exact phrasing, but what do all journeys require? A beginning. And so a lot of like our 3 main characters are looking at this and they're like, this is the way I am. There's nothing I can do about it. This is just who I am, and it's bad. I'm a bad person. There's Kaladin, Shallan, and Dalinar who are looking at themselves and going, this sucks. This is not it. But then Dalinar has this moment of, you can't have a journey if you don't have a beginning. This person who I am right now is the beginning. And then that I think this was also in part 5. I think is when that question was answered. And just that's a really important part of the question. You need a beginning, and like in order to start taking steps at all.
Yeah. You know what that really reminds me of as well? That kind of mirrors what Venli's doing. Like, wow, things are terrible. I screwed up, and I have a chance. Like, I colossally screwed everything up, and it is all my fault. And she's starting her journey to be better.
And this reminds me of another great line Dalinar has, is that a hypocrite is only someone in the process of changing.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was thinking of right there. Like,
hands down, one of my favorites in the entire book.
Yeah. It's like it, and I think, Ben, I remember us talking about Venli, and I feel like
I was wondering if you wanted to bring it
this hypocrite thing. I don't know. I feel like Venli is just in the process of changing, and we just haven't seen enough of it yet. I don't know.
Firstly, distinction. The quote is sometimes a hypocrite.
Sometimes a hypocrite
is a very important qualifier on that statement.
Is
very important.
Just in the process of changing to be better.
As a person in the process of changing. And I always love that quote. And secondly, I think Venli is someone who, I dislike her because I have, my opinion hasn't changed from rereads of Venli. I still feel like she's got off easy for what she did. She could be just be in the process of changing.
I feel like we just haven't seen enough of her to even say that she got off easy. Like,
I was gonna say that she's still on the journey.
Everyone gets the opportunity to choose to change. That's all she's done. It's sort of like that thing is very internal, and I feel like adding external things does not change like that. Her entire thing was just leading up to the point of empowering her to decide that maybe she could be different. So like that's all that happened in her story. Like, and essentially, like she barely took her first step in this book, and like that's what I'm excited for the next one. Is sort of like now she's going to get into the nitty gritty. Now she has to actually figure out how she's going to do this, the hard choices, all that.
She swore the first ideal. There's a lot more ideals for her to go through.
We don't know
and it's not going to be
be.
easy. Like I don't think.
Yeah.
She literally just started.
It's sort of like if she had the same, like, you know, more what's the word I'm looking for? Word count. As much screen time as some of the other characters, but then the same amount of stuff happened, then I would kind of agree with you. Like maybe she got off too easy, but she just had like such a small. We just had a little peek into her like in this book that it kind of made sense to me. Like
I think that's fair. Yeah,
I do really hope that we see more of her in the next book, and that
for sure.
I hope it changes my opinion on her.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I want it to,
Yeah.
That's her honors chasm moment.
Yeah. The end of her part 1. Yeah. So
Grace,
about that
you've been
pacing.
quiet for a while.
Oh yeah, Grace.
What? Oh, well, you guys started talking about characters and themes, and I just like kind of.
She's still in college. She gets enough of this in English class.
So about pacing, I never really minded Kolinar, and I really didn't think it was too long in this one. And Hoyd and Shallan's moment in the middle there was really poignant, much more poignant in this read than my last read. Of just it being a big character moment for her. I really liked that, and I mean, I can see someone saying that it is repetitive because Kaladin. What does Kaladin do in this book? I find a squad and I'm going to be their leader and I'm going to help them. And then I'm going to find another squad and I'm going to train my old squad, Bridge 4. Then in part 3, I'm going to find a third squad and then meet them. And it's like, you know, you have a point that it's getting a little repetitive.
Kaladin, you have a problem.
It's a little repetitive, but I think it's important because it can all come crashing down on him at the end of
it
part
is.
3.
It was so good to see the Parsh killing the wall guard and that. Oh, so
no, that was brutal.
Ian?
It was so brutal. I hated it, but it was.
Yeah, I know. That's why I love it.
So, like, one of the reasons I think a lot of people have an issue with the Shadesmar sequence is that most of the book is just like the first 2 books, but broader. But Shadesmar is weird. It's very different from the rest of the book. And it's those of us like us who know about the Cosmere and like the interconnectedness of Brandon's work and knew that like there were these other connections to other worlds. Like we just took it in stride. It's like, oh great, we're getting that now.
Yeah.
Whereas like someone uninitiated to the Cosmere gets to this and it's like, why are there laser swords in my sci-fi? Like these things don't go together.
Yeah, for us, it's almost like every minor
swords?
detail is important. But
what do you mean by laser swords?
I'm using it as a metaphor, guys.
I'm using it as a metaphor.
I don't remember laser swords. When were there
also
laser
said
swords?
I went
Sci-fi.
for a Star Wars
like,
reference.
Is it talking about Vivian's blade? So, interestingly, and I think other people have noticed this as well, the Kolinar sequence, first time around, I did not notice anything pacing because my own pacing was too fast to pay attention to things like that. And then in retrospective, when I was thinking about that, after my first read, the Kolinar sequence felt slow. I love the Shadesmar one, because there were all these cool things that we found out there. Like, that was great. Just give me more Shadesmar, please.
Yeah.
But thinking about Kolinar, I thought it was slow. And then I reread the book. And Kolinar is actually not bad. Like, it's not super tight, but there is stuff going on in all points of that sequence. And they are important things. and you need pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
The Woguard sequence, Shallan's stuff. Maybe you can cut off like one of Shallan's heists.
Well, she
in
really
quotation
only
marks.
got one. There was only really one big one, and it's referred
Yeah.
to that she is doing others, but there was really only that one big one where they gets crossbowed.
In
Yeah.
the forehead.
And her guards are like, "Hey, you don't look real good here." Like, I'm fine. blah, blah,
She's
blah.
like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I gotta take this crossbow bolt
I
out.
have so
of
much
it.
Boys, a little help,
PTSD.
please.
I have so much trauma, but it's okay. Don't think about that.
It's fine. It's fine. But
A
but
drop
it was
in the ocean.
necessary. Like, you need Shallan to fail to have the good Hoyd moment for her entire story, right?
Yeah. But a lot of the Kolnar stuff was fine. Part 1, the Kaladin sequence is not exciting to me when I think about it in reread, and that is because a lot of it is about, you know, the surprising reveals and all of that stuff, which in retrospect, when you know all of these things, they're not as exciting.
Yeah.
Part 2 doesn't have much going on for it. Like, it has okay moments, but as an entirety, I don't think it's
Character
Oh,
and
that
political
exciting.
stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
character and politics, and
yeah.
When you say it like that, I'm like, no, but I like those things. But at the same time, I still had a hard time getting through it.
yeah.
So
I think I like individually a lot of the things in part. Like, I love all of the Bridge 4 moments,
yeah, me too.
but they don't mesh with anything else in that part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like too much of a good thing that each part ruins it for the others.
Well, see, the thing is with Bridge 4 is that you actually do need that, because Tefts is absolutely essential. You need Tefts. That is
Oh, yeah.
absolutely mandatory.
Yeah, but you don't need Sigzil. You don't need Scar.
Well, you kind of do need Scar, because you do need Scar to... I think it was important to have Scar, because then you see Scar go with Kaladin to Kholinar. And... like, they're becoming Radiance. They protect Gavinor.
I feel like
I don't
they
know.
were they were significant enough in the later parts that you needed the setup for them in part 2. Because Teft showing up at the Oath Gate in part 5, you needed to know why that was so powerful and
Yes.
amazing. When Scar and Drahe lived, you need to know why that was significant. Sigzil, maybe.
Yeah. I can see your point, Evgeni.
Yeah.
I agree with Teft. I agree that Teft's chapter was really important for the entirety of the book. The rest, I feel, could have been tucked in like rocks already. Too long of a chapter.
I feel like it might be a thing where it's setting up stuff way later. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like that
Could be.
Brennan's thinking, okay, I'm going to do this part where we're not going to do Kaladin point of views. We're going to see Kaladin through others to build on these side characters to explore them later. And
Okay.
I think that could be it. Like, Tefts was absolutely mandatory here, right? And maybe Sigzil is going to have big moments later, right?
Well,
Now
he
that you
is
say
Hoyd's
that.
apprentice. Like,
It's
so
possible.
it could be related to some Hoyd thing.
I
Yeah.
can understand the perspective that's like, did we need all of these? That said, though, Tef's moment where it's like, oh, it's the coat that he sold. Oh, that gets me every time. Oh, it's so... The pain. You feel so much pain in this book of the characters. You feel Tef's pain, Shallan's pain, Dalinar's pain. Dalinar's pain is just so good.
Suffering.
It's so good.
And you can have all of it.
Fine wine.
So, well, let's talk about the Shadesmar sequence with what Ian was saying. And Grace, I feel like you have some comments to make about the Cosmere
Okay.
stuff.
Ian said that we like the Cosmere stuff, but he is wrong.
Oh,
I have some issues with it. I particularly have an issue with how prominent a role Vivenna had in this book on the second reread. A little backstory. Going into Oathbringer, I did not know that Vivenna was going to be in the book. I might have read the one back when it first came out, but in the months leading up to the release, I ignored spoilers and I'd completely forgotten about it by the time I'd gone in. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize who she was. It wasn't until the Kata scene in Shadesmar that I realized it.
Right.
And so reading her early scenes in Kolinar, knowing it was Vivenna, I hated it. I was like, what is the point of like all this mystery behind her? Like, I was like, I just did not like it at all.
I mean, obviously I can't disagree with you because that's your opinion, but if I may offer a rationalization, a lot of those early scenes with Vivenna are about Kaladin thinking he's found either another Radiant or somebody with an honor blade.
Because, I mean, based on the information that Kaladin had.
Yeah.
He's thinking very intelligently about it.
He is, yeah. He's making absolutely valid points. She's got what looks like a shard blade. It looks funky. She has no gem. She doesn't have any, like, nobody knows where she came from. She is this mysterious person that is a potential ally, or in some cases maybe like a double agent or an enemy that they don't know about, but definitely a person of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so spending a few chapters where he tries to figure her out, and then it just ends up being something that he didn't expect and couldn't expect, is, I think that's a valid way to introduce her.
So I feel Vivenna's presence in this book is necessary going forward, because in Words of Radiance we get Vasher and Nightblood, and if they are going to be important parts of the story going forward. It's like they were part of the original Way of Kings Prime. Warbreaker was written as a prequel for their appearance in Stormlight. Having written Stormlight, there's this new character, Vivenna, who is also a very important character in terms of those two characters as of the end of Warbreaker. If we only had Vasher and Nightblood in Stormlight, I think a lot of people would be unhappy with, like, where's Vivenna? What happened to Vivenna? So it's like she gets like a short sequence like, hey, Vivenna is here, like, doing important. She has her own arc going that we get to meet up with for a little while in this book, but it's not part of the main thrust of Stormlight.
I don't know if I agree with that.
As a fan of her in Warbreaker, this is so vindicating, because I get to see her be awesome and badass in this one. So I'm like, yes, take that, you Vivenna haters. Everyone who thought she was annoying in Warbreaker.
And I actually just reread, she has a conversation with Adolin about
oh, that was so
alluding
important.
to how, like, she ran away from her duty.
Yes.
Is how Adolin takes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, sometimes the best thing you can do is let someone else do the job, which is hugely important in his decision at the end of the book to like, no, I can't be king. I'll be high prince, but I can't be king.
It is important, but that's not something that had to come from her. Like, she was a good character to have that decision come from, because we already, some of us already know about her background, and so it makes sense, but he could have just as easily heard that from, like, an honor spren in Shadesmar.
I don't know if it would have been as impactful.
Thinking about this from a perspective of, like, the overall plot of this book specifically, Vivenna's in, then leaves, and then the main characters are going to fight at the end. And so I can see that, like, what is the point of Vivenna being in this book? And I think, given the fact that Nightblood is being more of a role, this crap is going to be important. And yes, Vivenna was not in the ending of this book, but I don't know what Nightblood's gonna do, but that's important somehow. Because this was the story that Brandon wanted to write with Vasher and Nightblood here, right?
It kind of felt significant to me that this was kind of the time when the world hoppers and what's all going on with people coming in from other worlds and the Cosmere being what it is not just a secret for people like Yasna anymore.
Yeah,
this is
that's
like
true.
this is sort of like it's now opening up and becoming bigger to the point that even like our normal people who are like not super secret society people, Adolin and Shallan, and well, Shallan's getting there, etc. You know, are like, oh, this is just common knowledge. Did you see their reaction to it? They had just come off like the worst experience of their lives after the Battle of Kholinar failing, but they were also like, oh, you're from another world. Cool.
It's not like in Mistborn when Laris just drops out of the air and you Google it and you're like, wait, that was an alien? And then in this book, the aliens are important, and it's like you kind of have to start bringing that idea in and like making it.
It was sort of like, oh, this maybe is more going to be like a commonplace thing, and this is the introduction to that idea.
Yeah,
maybe we'll see. But
Adolin has a line about how these things aren't new. The world was always like this. Like,
yeah, I
we
loved
just
that line.
didn't know.
Yep.
I loved that too.
It's a good line.
Yeah, it's sort of like I just didn't know that this was happening, but
Feeling that he's out of his
I'm-
element. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not different. The world's not different. I just know a little bit more.
And like, I get what you guys are saying, and I think all these things are important. I think for me though, her role in this book just felt too large for me.
Okay.
Like, I'm not opposed to having her in there, but I think for this book, what she did, it just felt like too much to me.
okay.
Which, like, that's entirely valid. It's like personal taste is definitely a thing, and it's like all you viewers out there who like are screaming at their computers about how like, no, you're all wrong. Grace is totally right. Like, you are correct. You're
We
all
can-
correct.
But also,
can-
you're not.
The thing is with like books and characters and your emotional reactions, that is true regardless of whether other people feel the same way. Like
Yeah.
two people can do this, can witness the same event or read the same book and have different reactions, and they can both be simultaneously correct. We don't need to go through and like say, oh, that person is wrong on the internet and therefore it is a crusade now and we must destroy them. Like it's fine.
There are as many correct interpretations as there are people reading the book.
Holla.
Grace, would you say that you liked it better originally because there was that mystery, but now that you know
Yeah.
the mystery, it was significantly less good?
Yes, definitely.
I find that interesting given what we talked about part 1, that many people here were saying, oh, Kaladin stuff was not as interesting because I know what's going on with the Voidbringers. Whereas me, I reread it and I just remembered this in part 1, that sense of, are all the Parshmen going to turn into storm form like in Words of Radiance? Like we don't know. That could be how it goes. And then the Everstorm comes, we're in Dalinar's point of view, and we're getting weird things with the Voidbringers. And then Kaladin finds the Voidbringers, and it's not what we expect. And I still liked it just as much. I don't think Vivenna was indeed not as interesting. I'm always interested in the Voidbringers, so Kaladin in part 1 was always still cool to me. So I can kind of see that. Were there any other things that were things that any of you like really liked that didn't this time, perhaps?
I'm gonna stay on the topic of Vivenna.
Okay.
After Ian finishes talking.
I was all I was going to say is like, it's just the things I didn't like, I still didn't like.
Okay.
So, but that's
like,
another
not really a
topic
change.
for a little
Yeah.
later.
Yep.
Okay. One thing I realized on the reread is that I would have preferred if Brandon had kept quiet about the fact that Vivenna was going to be in Oathbringer.
Yes.
Yeah, 100% completely agree.
1000%.
Yeah.
Really needs Brandon just
Normally,
writes a thing and he's so freaking excited to tell people about it, and it's just like, I just want to tell people and give them bones, but it's like, Brandon, just shut up, don't say anything.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, I like Brandon telling us little bits about future books. Vivenna's reveal was a tad too much. I feel this would have had ending of Words of Radiance and Nightblood level intact.
Yeah, because we didn't get that
If he had
moment.
quiet.
Yeah.
If we just didn't say, "Oh yeah, Vivenna's gonna be." Yeah, okay.
So more people could have been like me and gotten halfway through the Shadesmar sequence and have been like, "I'm an idiot. That's Vivenna."
Which is a fun moment. It's still not as big of a reveal as Nightblood. Oh, would you like to destroy some evil? Oh, that is
it's
so
like,
good.
Talk
it
about
took
an
me
ending.
until her first color metaphor in part 3 to
Yep.
like, oh wait, it's Vivenna.
I don't remember what color metaphor it was or what number, but it was that'll be Crimson to Break.
Yep.
And I was like, there were other ones before that, but I was
That one's
like,
actually
I'm
the
so
chapter
dumb.
title. That one's actually the chapter title of that.
Oh,
book.
really?
Is it?
Yeah, Crimson to Break. Yeah,
I don't look at
They
chapter
are-
titles.
I was looking at that. There are some great chapter titles in this one.
I should look at those.
Yeah.
No, they are an art of their own. But that's in they're storming the Kolnar Palace.
Yeah. It's like,
And
oh,
they-
that's going to be Crimson to Break.
There's
I
a
think
the one-
blockade
There we
that they need to break.
I think the first one Shiv uses is that's black on white.
Yep.
Yeah, something
It's
They were
white
on
Or
on
white
walls.
on black.
Yeah.
Or white
White
on
on black. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was my moment.
So now we know how to spot Nalthian.
And then I was like, oh my god, her name was a color. Oh.
yeah, absolutely.
like,
We know how, and I'm still going to completely miss it next time.
I
have
did
faith
this
in you.
time. I was
So we have been blabbing a lot. Let's talk about some more specific issues. We already talked about Moash on here. Let's talk about Amaram. Because that's a thing that I think a lot of people have had issue with the way he was dealt with in this book.
It needed a bit more foreshadowing.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've talked about this on like one of the Word of Brandon podcasts, I believe, at some point. In Words of Radiance, in Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, and theoretically the beginning of Oathbringer, Amaram is an anti-villain. Like, he's doing the wrong thing, but
A what?
Hmm?
An anti-villain?
yes.
Like an
Like
anti-hero, but-
anti-hero,
really small
but
and-
anti-villain.
Eat like
Which is
there's loads of him, and they like eat food that you drop.
no, okay.
He's
So
not Ant-Man.
okay, so
He's anti-villain.
a hero does the right thing because they want to. An anti-hero does the right thing because they feel they have no other choice. A villain does the wrong thing because they want to. An anti-villain does the wrong thing because they feel like they have no other choice. Which, that's Amaram.
Okay.
Like, he's doing these horrible things for the greater good in his mind. In
Okay.
his last scenes, like, he's a full-on villain. Like, he knows he's doing the wrong thing. He doesn't care anymore. And it's just, we didn't get to see the transition from anti-villain to villain, which makes that whole sequence unsatisfying, because it's like, why is he acting so out of character? Like, it's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how did he get to this point?
Yeah.
I don't think it's that deep.
I have disliked the Amaram ending. It was the part of the ending that was just not as awesome as the rest of it. That's what I always felt. And in this read, it made sense to me the way it never has before. And so I totally see what you're saying, Ian, because I have long agreed with that point of view. But now it's very simple. Amaram was trying to get the Heralds to come back, and Odium, well, I think Amaram just had a town, right? Wasn't that what
Yeah,
it was?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Tom.
and so Odium just told Amaram what the Heralds were actually doing. And all of the horrible things that Amaram did to try and get the Heralds to come back, it broke him. Because all of the terrible things he murdered Kaladin's squad to make this happen, to bring on this desolation, to bring honor to men, didn't matter, because the people he was trying to bring were already there. He didn't, all of the things that he did that he's felt guilty about, it just destroyed him. And so then he gave Odium his pain.
The issue I have is that doesn't happen on screen.
I don't think it
you
needs to happen.
But
I don't
like,
think that was
the
that clear.
frustrating thing for me is like the immediate, as far as I can remember, the immediate prior scene we have with Amaram is in part 2 where he comes to the meeting of the scholars, and Yasna just totally roasts him.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it's like he's still trying. Like he's still trying because like he's like,
Yeah.
let me speak with your uncle. Like we can mend this like break. And then at the end, he's like, "Yo, I'm evil now. Yo,
True.
praise
Like
Odin."
I just never felt that there was that much difference between the two of them. He was always a guy who was like felt a little guilty about what he was doing, but still knew he was doing bad things, which is even in the anti-villain stage, he was still like that was still the perfect mindset for Odium to prey upon. It was like that was always it. He never actually moved away from anti-villain. It's the exact same thing. Odium is doing this to a bunch of people. Give me your pain. It wasn't your fault. You did what you had to do, and now let me take care of it. That never changed. It's like, to me, it was very simple. I can connect the dots from what he was saying. So it was like it never needed to be on screen, and in a book that already had so much in it, I'm like, it wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
I can see why he didn't put it in.
I see why, but the fact that he wrote Edge Dancer to have Milan's change of like heart so that it could happen on screen is just like,
I just don't think Amram is not in the same class as Nail.
No, he's not.
Like,
that doesn't
it's
make
sort of
it like any less satisfying.
It's sort of like, to me, he's never been that significant of a character. How many scenes has he even gotten in the whole series?
Yeah,
I just don't understand.
He was a driving character for Dalinar and Kaladin in Words of Radiance.
I can't agree with that.
Like the amount of scenes.
I agree that it feels like this transition from an anti-villain to a villain is a climactic moment for the character, and it's something we should have seen a little more of. I'm not advocating for a novella, but I would have liked to see, a scene in a chapter where that happens.
It's like I understand why it wasn't put in, so that the reveal, like, oh wait, Amaram's totally evil now. Like that's a very impactful moment.
I don't know if that's the reveal. Like I thought it was more impactful to know, like as a surprise, oh, Odium's been talking to a lot of people. To me, that was the bigger reveal and impact.
That was a pretty good reveal. Yeah.
It's like,
so I thought that was more significant to keep than backing up why Amaram specifically did it.
And it's like, full disclosure, I haven't gotten to that part yet in my reread. So it's like my opinions might be different this time, but
I don't know that I necessarily think it needs more foreshadowing of why he changed sides. I think it needs a bit more foreshadowing of, like, when reading Oathbringer, I didn't necessarily see any hints that he was talking to Odium, and it sort of seems like he had been for a while. And I think that's what I want, is just to have been a bit more foreshadowing of so that when I could go back and read Oathbringer, oh, that's like he was totally talking to Odium then.
I kind of feel like I was getting that. Remember when Dalinar came back to Thalen Fields that one time, and then him and Amram have that big, like, what's that word I'm looking for? They're snipping the fracas.
Confrontation.
They have a confrontation, and Amram is so angry at Dalinar, and like,
full disclosure, I totally forgot about that scene. So
yeah, but that was that
like
scene.
Days, maybe weeks before the ending. Like,
I'm with you, Ian. Yeah, because in part 2, it doesn't seem like Amaram's turn to Odium. I just want to know when that point occurred.
Yeah.
I will give you that for sure. But Amaram literally just explains this about the Heralds when he's fighting Kaladin. He completely explains all of this. I don't know, maybe it's just that you get really tired reading that giant chapter of chapter 120 that I just kind of glossed over that important part. But he does. He explains it.
Yeah, I guess, like, I'd just rather it be shown rather than told.
I totally agree, but there was also benefit to the stress of, oh, Amaram's army's there. They're all going to turn to Odium. So I can completely get that is unsatisfying. I'm just happy that there is at least some transition there. Yes.
I am just so confused.
Yeah. Yes, Ben.
I read his motivation as just kind of, I'm mad at Dalinar, so I'm going to join Odium. My grievance with what Amaram happens is that his death is I find that completely unsatisfying. That's the part I find unsatisfying, because once he swallows Reshafit, not Reshafit, oh my god,
Yelignar.
Yelignar. Once he swallows
swallows
Yelignar,
like
I know.
Yeah, once he
follows
swallows
a
the
lot of
gemstone.
unmade.
and once he swallows the gemstone and like gets possessed, which we know that possession eats away at the person that he possesses, feels like for me, like I don't know if thematically is the right word. It didn't matter that it was Amaram at that point because he was fighting Yelignar. Like,
Sure.
and then Rock then kills him in the end as well, which is I also didn't like. But I get the
Yeah.
point where it's like, it shows that, Kaladin can now rely on other people to do things for him, because Kaladin and Amaram, they're almost complete opposites. And for Kaladin's storyline, I think Amaram was pretty much one of the most important characters in Kaladin's life, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of he's the reason Kaladin is who he is. And yeah, I just felt like once he swallowed Yelignar,
That was weird.
it kind of didn't matter that it was Amaranth anymore, and he could have just been anyone, and he was just fighting a monster with all surges at that point. And yeah, I just didn't like that ending for that storyline.
Do not agree with that.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it very much mattered that it was Amaram because of their back and forth during the duel.
Kaladin says multiple times throughout that fight. I'm agreeing with you, Evgeni, that like he says, "Oh, it's still Amaram." In there, and that a line like that keeps
True.
getting thrown in there throughout the
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, well,
Hmm.
I think it's actually Amaram who says, like, Kaladin accuses him of, like, he tries to address Yelignar.
Yeah.
And Amaram counters that with, it's still me.
It's also in the prose as well, but
Yeah.
There is the feeling, which is something I agree with. The feeling I get from Amaram fused with Yelignar is a very different feeling from Asudan fused with Yelignar. Because with Amaram, like they have a little chat before about giving Amaram a gem that hosts Yelignar, and that, hey, hopefully he is strong enough to contain the one who comes after. And it does feel like Amaram is. Like, the creature that is the mix between Amaram and Yelignar feels like an empowered Amaram, and not like a Yelignar who is taking over a body.
it's like,
And so, in that sense, it's Kaladin versus Amaram on steroids.
Yeah.
I think I would have been happier if Amaram didn't die. Like if he became this hybrid of Amaram and Yelignar and became a recurring villain in that way. I don't know.
I'm just very confused because to me, this is just in my read of the Stormlight Archive, he was never that significant. And so when I saw people afterwards complaining about how sudden it was, I was like, what do you care? To me, he was never that significant. I'm just very confused as to like this being a really important point for people, just because I was sort of like, okay, great, he's dead. Moash was always kind of like the bigger powerhouse in terms of like here's an impactful villain who I feel like he's more impactful than Amaram on Kaladin right now, going forward, because now it's a comparison of like the two paths, and there's a much bigger sense of betrayal now from Moash. Kaladin already knows what Amaram is at this point. Like I don't think there's anything new, any new ground to be trod there. I think the more emotional villain connection is with Moash now.
That's fair. Maybe that's why Amaram's chapter just needed to be closed to give Kaladin time to deal with Moash, as a riderly perspective.
I definitely think that's the case, but I can understand why people would not be satisfied with that. It's like, oh, what was your whole? If you read Way of Kings, Kaladin fighting Amaram eventually, this is not what you expected, and not in that good way of not expected necessarily, right? Is I don't know, and so I think because people generally tend to have a big connection with Kaladin because he's the viewpoint of the first book, and that moment of, wow, Amaram is the worst, that you get here and one can feel, we just needed to kill off Amaram because we're going to fight other things, So I can understand that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what my thing is. It just feels like, we've just got to kill off Amaram because we're kind of done with him now. And I felt like there could have been a better resolution thematic. You guys are all frozen.
Your internet is shit, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it feels a little stable right now. I'm going to do what I said.
No!
I think we're going to need to skip it, Ben. I'm sorry. You're like
That's fine.
You're
That's fine.
super pixely. Grace?
The robot Grace virus.
This is just a kind of a tiny nitpick related to the Amaram Kaladin fight. I do not like how much talking and character exposition is in that fight. It's a fight scene, and I don't need them being like, "No, I forged you. No, I am the spear that cannot break." I just fight each other.
That is okay. No, that's fair.
No, see, I liked that. I liked that because you need that. It would have been more unsatisfying if Amaram just died and then you thought, oh, that was the grand showdown.
It's just compared to when I read that section, I'm always comparing it to everything else going on during that battle because it's mixed in, and that is always the part I like the least. That's always
true.
The part where I'm like, I just want to skip this section to get back to like Adolin and Maya and like Shalon doing the light weavings and like Lift and Nightblood and Zeth being an awesome like trio.
And
I did skim.
Yeah, and as far as if you consider Kaladin's last major duel of Zeth, that one is cooler than Kaladin versus Amaram. It just is.
Yeah.
There's also a lot going on in that last duel. Like there's end of the world type of stuff around them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like something has to be the wing clank.
It's like I agree that it's a little silly that they're in this battle for life and death, and Amaram is just continuously turning into this monster, and they're going back and forth.
I feel like Amaram needed the closure as much as Kaladin did.
Oh yeah.
Because the entire fight, Kaladin's like, then why are you still in pain? Why are you hurting?
Why are you still in pain? Yep.
Why are you still in pain?
Like
and
that.
Amaram is like losing his mind. He can't handle it. It's sort of like they both needed to yell. So, I agree. Like it does. It's sort of like I do agree. It's the slower part, and I don't necessarily follow it line by line when I'm reading it again. But I'm like, yeah. No.
So now we'll go on to a not at all contentious issue. You know the one, the love triangle. Let's go.
Well, you guys have fun.
Flashback to Shannon's first episode of Shardcast.
I would say that there are a lot of people who dislike the end of the love triangle, and I was very curious reading Oathbringer how I felt about this on a reread. What I felt was different, and knowing the small controversy regarding the love triangle. And just for the record, it is, again, perfectly fine that you read the book a certain way and you had those reactions. And so our reactions are not necessarily yours. There's also a group who really don't like Adolin.
Oh, that love triangle.
Yeah. Just in case you were not clear. And
not
it is fine.
Not the Dalinar Gavilar Navani one.
No. Well, actually, that one is criminally underdone in the flashbacks, actually. But
criminally.
It is. But again, it is perfectly fine for you to not like Adolin, not like that Shalon got with Adolin. That's totally fine. So Ben's internet died, and he definitely
He's returned to Braze.
He has returned to Braze. He did not want to talk about the love triangle. Which is fair.
The Brexit.
What did you guys think of the love triangle on a reread? How many dislikes will this get for us?
I just wish it never happened at all. I was just sort of like, I don't see the point of why all three of them had to be in this story. Why?
Or like the specific relationship of love triangle that they got did not need to be in this story.
Yeah, okay. I think all three of them did need to be in separately.
Yes, they did.
It's like the fact that Brennan made it so Vale was in love with Kaladin and not Shallan was slightly better, but I still think it would have been better for there not to be a love triangle, to be honest.
Love triangles, in my opinion, are really hard to write and really overused by people who don't know how to write them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Brandon,
you read romance. You read romance.
I do read romance. I do
Alright.
read romance.
Excellent.
Brandon's romances in general already are, like, in my opinion, not his strongest suits. And I don't think he's written he is not, in my opinion, written a successful love triangle. And this one included.
If he's going by the lessons of this book, he's just going to keep writing them until it gets it right.
No.
I know that's not what you any of us
that's
want
not
to
what
hear.
I want
Which
at all.
sounds perfect to me. Give me more threesomes, Brandon. Love triangles.
I think a lot of people did not like that Kaladin and Shallan did not get a lot of time and development in this book, which is fair. You did not get that. That is not this book. You did not get that relationship to evolve the way you would like. You got a lot more Shallan and Adolin, and so in some sense, it's not really surprising that that's where it went. And so I understand people getting annoyed by that, and I just wish that it was not necessary for us to do this entire thing. That said, I have read many threads talking about Adolin and Shallan, and I still think Adolin and Shallan are adorable. So I do. I can't look at that where Adolin goes to Shallan and Shadesmar and is like, I'm gonna give you a back rub, and not think that he cares about her. That's me. So I think I just think it was not necessary for us to do a love triangle. Was that really that important for Shallan's personas in this book? Was that why? No, we didn't. We actually didn't need to do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on the record.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
I don't
no.
believe you have been on the record regarding love triangle opinions. So
Hi, I am new to Shardcast. Here, listen to me. I am very happy with the love triangle in Oathbringer.
explain.
Wow.
An essay by me.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. Bring on the dislikes.
So,
people viewing.
so let's go down the list.
Okay.
I feel like, so first of all, the separation, the fact that Shallan and Radiant, to an extent, were a lot more attracted to Adolin, although Radiant kind of flipped a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas Vale was a lot more attracted to Kaladin. It was an interesting plot device, and it also served the purpose of highlighting how different the different personalities of Shallan were. And so that fed back into her kind of main problem in the book, where she was fracturing herself and losing herself. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. Going back to Words of Radiance and the infamous Storms, she smiled anyway line. It felt like there was promise in that scene. Promise that these two characters will either have something or will need to deal with something that they think is there and is actually not. Which, like, Shallan and Kaladin needed to be resolved in one way or another, and whether you're happy with how they were resolved or not is a whole different thing. But those two needed to be resolved, and the fact that Shallan was causally betrothed to Adolin was also there. And so, like, all the ingredients of a triangle, like, you had 3 points. You had to do something with those 3 points. How it was handled in Oathbringer is not something I can really talk about because I don't read books with love triangles. But a lot of the scenes made sense to me. Like, if Shallan is wearing the Veil persona at the moment, yeah, she's gonna pine over Kaladin because Veil pines over Kaladin. It's like they are different people for many intents and purposes. A lot of the scenes where it was Shallan, actual Shallan, with Adolin, yeah, it makes sense that they would be affectionate and loving of each other because those two are just affectionate and loving of each other, period. That's Shallan. And then the moment she flips to Veil, she starts ogling Kaladin because she's shirtless and doing something epic and probably shining. And the resolution at the end, after the battle for Thalen Fields, made sense to me. It was Shallan ended up choosing Adolin, at least partially because he was somebody, one, who showed affection for us instead of Kaladin, who was being just like brooding and throwing glances and not doing anything about anything. But also Adolin understood her. Adolin was with her. Adolin took the time to actually get to know and care for her. Whereas Kaladin was kind of a not even a fling. It was just, yeah, he's pretty.
And Kaladin liked the idea of Shallan. Like,
Also true.
he likes like, oh, like Storm, she smiled anyways. It's like, that's so awesome. Like, not really seeing like, no, this is incredibly problematic. She should not be doing this. She's like, he has this idea of who she is.
Yep.
Which isn't realistic.
So I think the components were there. I don't think they quite came together. And so like I think that's why you like it. You like it because like the components were there, but I don't think they quite came together to make it work. Like I think the ending in particular, when Shallan like makes her choice and is like talking to like Adolin about it, is where it falls apart the most for me, because she's just kind of like, oh, I never really liked him. He's just a pretty face, and I'm an artist, and of course I'm attracted to that. Like, and love triangles are about character exploration. You have a character, and you have these two people who represent two different ideas, and the character who has to choose is like looking as exploring what these different ideas that they represent mean to them, and which one like matters most and which one they should choose. And I think there wasn't quite enough of that. Like the connections weren't quite there for me. Like her, like it makes sense that Veil's attracted to Kaladin, I think, but I think the way it kind of came together, the way that choice at the end kind of came together, I don't think there was like quite enough build up to it, I think, is my issue.
I think part of the reason for that is that by design, Shallan and Kaladin didn't have barely any scenes where they interacted in this book. They had a couple things here and there, but on the whole, they didn't interact in the same level that Shallan and Adolin did. Now, I think this was on purpose and sort of exemplifies that the choice that Shallan was making was between someone who she had put work into a relationship with, had already had established routines, patterns, patterns, routines, patterns. They have an established relationship versus someone who she's spoken with a couple of times. They had a time in the chasms which was intimate and meaningful for both of them, but that was it. And since then, like there's nothing, and there's no proof that they actually have anything to found a relationship on. And I think that was by design, but I totally agree with you that it doesn't make for a great love triangle plot or resolution of a love triangle plot.
If you're into Shallan and Kaladin, you're upset with the way that Shallan's like, nah, and Kaladin's just, I never loved her anyway. Like, it really kind of just, I can completely understand that.
And I think I'd have less of a problem with it if at the end, instead of Shallan just being like, oh, he's a pretty face endowment artist. She'd said something like, I don't know him and he doesn't know me the way you and I know each other.
I
think
totally agree.
I think just that something like that, a single line like that would have made it work so much better.
I didn't like the line that she tried to reduce what she and Kaladin had. I totally agree. It's just if she had just like admitted that, like, you know, we might have had something, but
that's probably a reason why if you're in Shallan and Kaladin that you read the book and you're like, oh, so my investment in these characters is this.
I just think
You
that's
know,
more
like-
a problem with Shallan's character than I think Brandon's writing, because that's
Well,
something
that's true.
Shallan would say.
Shallan would
Yeah.
do that, and
Yeah,
that said, I can understand if people being frustrated with that in particular.
yeah, it's sort of like I don't think this is I don't necessarily think that was just Brandon not understanding how to resolve it. I think that was also just Shallan makes light of tons of stuff that she probably shouldn't make light of, and she's
Oh, that's true.
and she just doesn't know how to talk to people because she's 17 and just
And messed up.
Very messed up.
yeah. So it's sort of like it's the like I'm going to be an adult. I know what an adult is. I think it's kind of the same thing. It's sort of like she wants to know how to handle this sort of thing, but she doesn't quite know yet. It's sort of like this will make Adolin not feel like, you know, stressed out or
Rejected.
like he's competing with Kaladin. So it's like in her mind this is the way of like, oh, this will make him feel better about it, instead of like, but an adult would be like, well, let's just admit the truth of like there was something, but I'm still choosing you.
There was
Yeah.
the potential for something.
Yeah, more accurate.
I have grown to understand the disappointment with the love triangle a lot, because I mean I liked Shallan and Adolin, so I'm very happy, and my relationships are often extremely dorky and silly, much like Shallan and Adolin's, and I feel probably Brandon's is like this too. And if your relationships are different, you're different people, that's fine. But that always resonated with me, that that works. But I can very much understand why it did not work for people.
You know what? All this makes me wonder about how applicable is it to talk about this as a love triangle plot? Because it's really a bit of a rectangle, bit of a trapezoid.
But the thing is, Vale isn't a real person.
One
Vale
of the
is
points
fake, and that's why Shallan falls apart at the end of part 3, is because Vale is fake. She's not a real person.
Yeah.
That was why are you giving me that look, Evgeni? That's what happens.
I mean,
That is what happens.
That is what happened.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, is like the fakeness of Vale catches up to her, and she can't pretend that Vale is real to the same sense, although she'll still act like Vale and da 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 da.
Yeah.
with magic, it's a little more complicated, but okay.
Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
I also have grown to appreciate why people did not like Adolin's characterization in this. Because often, Brandon, multiple times in this book, just goes, Adolin, he's very likable. And if you don't like Adolin, and you go into Oathbringer, and the author is saying, Adolin is very likable, I am telling you this, and characters agree with this, and therefore, you like it, that can get really grating, and I completely understand that. That said, I agree that Adolin is likable, so, you know, it always worked for me, but if
I
you
feel
didn't
like-
like that, then yeah, sure, that gets really irritating.
There's a difference between I didn't like this and this is bad writing. Sometimes they touch, but those are not mutually exclusive. They're two different things.
Yes.
And it's like that's the way I try to approach media, is sort of like I feel like there is a separation as we grow as readers from this is good, or I like it, therefore this is good, and I don't like it, therefore this is bad. It's sort of like there is a definition of like, I wasn't totally thrilled with Shallan and Adolin's relationship. Like, to me, it's just not the kind of dynamic that really grabs me as a reader. So I was kind of bored with it. But I can still see, like, I can see all the points that Brandon was putting in. Oh, at the beginning that they're both very scared of each other and lying to each other, and then they move and like to the end of like part 5 where they are not afraid of each other and they're starting to trust each other. So I'm like, so even though I wasn't the biggest fan of it, I was sort of like seeing the things that Brandon was laying down at each of their scenes and going, okay, I see what you're doing.
Is that what
It's
you're
gonna-
saying? Your feelings were with Shallan and Adolin?
Yeah, I'm not like the biggest fan. Like it's cute, but it's not what draws me personally,
Okay,
Shannon,
I
as
see.
a reader.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Yeah,
I
so,
wasn't
like,
sure
that's-
if you were being hypothetical of.
No, I'm not being
Oh.
hypothetical. This
Oh,
is
gotcha.
this is what I've always thought. I've come to accept it more over time, but especially the first time through, I was just like, no, I hate this.
Okay.
I don't like Shallan with anyone.
Oh,
So
all right.
yeah, I'm just like, no, I don't necessarily like this, but I was still picking up the threads of what Brandon was setting down for the relationship and going, oh, they are gonna be canon, aren't they? Okay, all right, and then I've accepted it over.
I definitely think it's a factor of either people really dislike Adolin, which I think is fair. That you probably are gonna like the resolution because of it, and if you don't like Adolin, then you probably prefer not Adolin, and then you don't
Nadolin.
yeah, and you just don't get Shallan and Kaladin interacting much in this book, and so yeah, you're gonna be disappointed, and that's fine.
Or if you don't like Shallan with either of them, then this was all just disappointing. I try not to harp on too much about how much I hate the love triangle, but I keep it inside.
I
As
just
much as
I just really just didn't think that it was necessary. Like we didn't need Shallan just I'm catching glimpses of Kaladin. It's irritating, Shallan. Shallan, what are you doing?
It's one of the very few things that could very easily have been cut from this book.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was
mean,
gonna say I did roll my eyes when she was doodling Kaladin at the meeting and being like, he has such a strong jawline or whatever it was.
God.
anyway, I won't get into it. I'm just.
I think that was the one moment that I was like, and we were talking about part 2 Shallan earlier and how you guys found her annoying. That was the one part 2 Shallan moment that I was like rolling
Some
my eyes.
Kolinar
Remember?
things too that she's just like thinking about Kaladin when she should be thinking about Adolin, and that's annoying. And so
It's more Veil there, I feel. Like by the time
Yeah.
you get to Kolinar, the separation between Shallan and Veil is
Yeah.
stronger, I feel.
It was sort of like, I was saying like she should have just been like more emotionally honest with Adolin. She should have been more emotionally honest with herself, but this is the entire point of Shallan's character. I understand, but it's sort of like if she was like, oh no, I shouldn't be thinking about Kaladin. I feel so guilty. This is bad. Just like admit that you are like thinking about Kaladin and like maybe explore what that feels like, and then like I feel like that would have helped the resolution be better. But it was sort of like, no, it's forbidden. Like it's bad. I can't. Ugh.
it just
Emotions
feels
are hard.
Emotions are hard.
Emotions are hard, and she's young. She's 17.
And I just am like, I don't know if we needed this, but Grace, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, Brandon's romances are not exactly the highlight of the book for me.
I'm with you.
So wow, we've been blabbing a lot.
No way.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon. Which is your favorite Stormlight book? Go.
Oathbringer.
Oathbringer.
I want to go with words.
Favorites.
Words of Radiance.
Okay.
The single volume collection of the entire series.
Yeah. Okay.
The archive.
I don't know. They're all good in different ways.
All three of them are very different books. Words of Radiance was very different from Way of Kings. Oathbringer is very different from those other two, and
Dalinar's story was just so. That was it. That was it for me.
It was so. I've thought a lot about why Words of Radiance and Oathbringer are both really, really good, but in different ways. And I really think it's because Words of Radiance is more. It's not like YA or popcorn fiction or anything like that, but there's a lot more immediate payoff as you read things. Like things are happening bam, arena fight. Fast-paced, entertaining, good writing, action, everything. Stuff's happening later on. Kaladin saying words, the end of the world, the storm forms, all of that stuff. Whereas with Oathbringer, it's slower paced, it is more deliberate. The payoffs are less immediate, but kind of more overarching and encompassing and deeper in some ways.
Like the theme is so much stronger in Oathbringer.
Yeah, like we talked earlier, failure and accepting failure and how do you move on. Like that is a big theme.
And it's powerful.
You can spend your entire life like thinking about that and doing better or not doing better if you're Moash.
Well, again, it's an exploration of that. It's an exploration of that. I don't know if I like Oathbringer better than Words of Radiance anymore. Originally, I thought that I did like Oathbringer better. I love the structure of Oathbringer. That just all the unmade and it comes together and the highs are so high. All the high moments just get me exactly the same way. Dalinar killing Evie. It's just, whoa, that was a powerful moment. Odium showing up, that's a powerful moment. The entire ending of just the stress of if Dalinar is gonna turn, it gives me chills just thinking about it. I think Words of Radiance might be a bit better of a book, but the highs are better in Oathbringer, and the theme and the structure is better in Oathbringer. So I like them differently.
It feels like it's so hard to cap Kaladin's quote unquote resurrection of Sildo in Words of Radiance.
Well,
like that is such a high for me.
It is.
I mean, I love just like the Dalinar summoning Honor's Perpendicularity.
It's awesome.
Like, that
yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
That just works for me.
You can't have my pain. He figures it out. All of the flashbacks matter, and he's gonna trap the thrill in, and only he can do it because he knows the thrill so intimately and so well, which is foreshadowed with what Shallan does with Ray Shafir. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But I think I might like Words of Radiance a little better. Overall. Just that
definitely a close call.
That Words of Radiance I just don't have any issues with it, and the love triangle, okay, it's a little annoying, and Shallan interacting in part 2, it's a little annoying. Whereas Words of Radiance, I was annoyed with nothing and was just enthralled the whole time. And this, I like it in spite of some faults, but I still really like Oathbringer.
You might be onto something here, now that I think about it as well. I don't have problems with Words of Radiance. And then in Oathbringer, the things I like are, for the most part, I like them more than Words of Radiance, but there are also things I don't like, and so they average out a little bit.
But again, when I wrote my Oathbringer review, I was going off the high of how awesome that ending was and how great that was with the whole of the story. And that is so awesome that it's really great. There's so much to talk about with Oathbringer, as you could tell with this podcast, that got really... and there are lots of things to talk about with Oathbringer that maybe we'll do another episode where we going through interesting quotes of Oathbringer and other things. We'll see. Let us know if you want us to talk about some other stuff in particular, as always. And let us know how you feel if you've done a reread of Oathbringer, what you think about it on a second read. Yeah, now we're just waiting for Grace to get them.
Yeah. Oh, just a quick thing. You were talking about how nothing will beat the Kaladin reviving still at the end. I don't know. I love that Way of Kings ending. I really when he turns back and saves Dalinar.
That is a really good scene.
That might be why
most of my rereads start with me reading the Way of Kings ending and then going, I can't stop, and then reading Words of Radiance as well. Just because I love the ending, but then I can't.
I like
stop
Way
after.
of Kings better than Words.
Whoa, I totally disagree. I like Words of Radiance a lot more than Way of Kings.
How
I
dare.
love Kaladin's thing in the in the bridge cruise leading up to the end was like so powerful, whereas like Words had some parts where it was really difficult to read, like where the parts where you knew Syl was being hurt by that. It was just like that wasn't fun for me. That was just like,
I mean, it's
See, I love when
guys say-
characters are in pain. I really like that.
I just had a hard time getting through it. And
Yeah. I know people who literally put Words of Radiance down because of what Kaladin was doing to Syl. I'm like, just read a little bit further. Just like get a little bit further. You could do it.
yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I've always thought Way of Kings is my least favorite of them. I like it, but I like Words of Radiance and Oathbringer.
Way of Kings is probably my least favorite, but that ending might be like one of my favorite parts of any of the Stormlight Archive.
So we've blabbed a lot, and you know what? You're still getting Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Rosharan.
Menace.
Tien.
Tom.
Braves.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw.
Hello, listeners. You know how the game is played. You send in an email with 5 clues relating to a character. I read each clue loud, one at a time. And after each clue, our panelists get a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character.
You're so much better at this than I am. Like in the last episode I edited, I just didn't even do this spiel. I just opened,
I have practice.
I just went right into it. I'm just like, I don't care anymore.
Okay, this one was sent in by Sato Gaika.
Awesome.
Clue 1. This character was from Scadrial.
Menace.
Felt.
It's not Menace. It is not
Ah!
Felt.
Demo.
It is not Demo.
Sazed.
It is not Sazed. Clue 2. This character was in awe of Kelsier.
It's been so long.
I mean, Spook.
It was not Spook. Or is
Hmm.
not.
In awe.
Wait. No, of Kelsier.
Aren't there like a grand total of like 3 people who admire Kelsier?
He starts a religion. Multiple religions, actually.
Oh, yeah. That's fair.
Kaladin's thing is bonding with squads of people. Kelsier's thing is creating religions where people must fanatically
That's-
devote him. That's
I
the
mean,
thing.
that's his
For
resident.
all you know, it could be an Era 2 person who's in the Church of the Survivor.
That is true.
That's
And
true.
I hate you for saying that.
That's true. I need to do an Era 2 reread.
I need to do a complete Mistborn reread. I think I've read them all once.
Shame.
I might have to pass. Marsh?
What?
I don't know.
It is not Marsh.
Thank
Marsh was
you.
definitely not in awe of Kelsier.
I'm like, I wonder if this is like someone who's just read it and saw this line, even if it's out of character.
He's in awe of how stupid Kelsier can be sometimes. I don't know.
Bilg?
It is not Bilg.
Wow.
I'm gonna go with. I don't think he was in awe of Kelsier, but I'm gonna go with Goradel.
It is not Goradel. Clue 3. This character was naive.
Vin?
It is not Vin.
This is gonna be some Era 2
Yeoman.
It is not
Yeoman?
Yeoman.
No, that's not the one I.
No, not at all.
No, I meant. Yeah, okay.
You guessed Yeoman.
I did guess Yeoman. I didn't mean to guess Yeoman, but that's the thing that came out of my mouth.
That is not accurate.
No. I was thinking of a different character.
It took me a while to think of Goradel, so naive.
Naive. Oh my god.
Oh, I remembered my character.
Okay.
Who's
Come on,
naive?
chop, guess
A pass.
before I forget again. Ian, go. Say Laris.
He already.
I
Ian
already
guessed. We're waiting
guessed.
for Eric.
Oh, Eric, go.
Oh.
Say Laris.
I'm just gonna go with Marasi because she's a survivorist, and I know this
It is
doesn't work.
not Marasi.
and it's not naive. So whatever.
Clue 4. This character died a painful death.
Okay, so probably not. Well, Oh, it could be one of those church people. No, the Pathian people were killed in Shadows Herself.
Yeden.
It is not Yeden.
Painful
Yes.
death.
I would like to point out that you cut off just before the not, and so to my ears, it sounded like it is Yeden. So I'll take my point.
No, that's
No.
not
Doesn't
how it
work
works.
that way.
Not how this works.
Damn it! So sure.
What's clue
Yeah,
4 again,
I think we're-
Grace?
This character died a painful death.
I guess I'll
Mayor?
pass.
It is not Mare. What did you say?
I'm gonna pass.
Eric? Oh, you're gonna pass?
Okay.
Clue 5. This character portrayed Vin.
Been a really long time.
Now I'm even more confused.
Is it Orisur?
It is not Orsur.
Sweet. Cammon.
It is not Kamen.
He was not naive. Why did I guess Cammon? God damn.
Who betrays Vin?
I know.
It feels like it should be a long list of people, but it's really not.
It feels like there should be a lot more people who betrayed Vin. Like, the best people I can think of is
Reen.
Tensoon and Zane.
I got the Contra mixed up.
Rip.
I mean, to be fair, for most of the book, he was called Orsur.
Yeah.
Poor one. I couldn't remember if he was called Tensoon and was Orisur, or if he was called Orisur and was Tensoon. So
You don't remember Suni Pups?
which one is which? Which one? I remember Suni Pups, but like,
Yeah, that's
which...
because Tensoon's the one who lives.
Okay.
Sean betrays Vin. It's like, that doesn't fit at all.
Kliss the informant.
It is not Kliss, the informant.
It's a very.
No.
Great. Fantastic.
I have no idea. Who betrayed Vin?
It's like we know random minor Rosharan characters, but random minor
Yeah.
Gadgery characters who
No.
might fit.
No. I don't know. I'm stumped.
Who still has a clue or to
Would you like to guess Stump?
I'm gonna go with Menace for a second time. Thank you very much.
Second time.
Menace, but evil and betrayed Vin. Easy.
Menace-
Menace who actually met Vin at some point.
Shut up.
Menace's evil
Menace the
twin.
Dennis.
Does anyone still have to guess?
I don't think so.
Think Evgeni?
No.
Have
you guessed
No,
Evgeni?
I guessed Cammon.
Oh, okay. Right.
So the answer is Ulef from Kamen's crew.
Was he in
Okay.
Kelsier? Explain.
I
mean,
Would have to
Kelsier-
read the book.
No,
I'd have
so
to reread those chapters.
the crew is all there. I mean, that's why I guessed Cammon. Is just my guess was not good enough. Kelsier shows up there, and they are in awe because he's a nobleman, he's a Mistborn, and they practically worship
Okay.
him.
Okay.
And then Olaf ends up being betraying Vin to the Steel Ministry,
Yeah, okay.
and then Kelsier kills them all.
Okay. Well, on that amazing anticlimactic note of us getting stumped, good job stumping us on early Mistborn 1 characters who
That are on
die.
like, chapter 1.
Isn't it chapter 2?
Well, it's the prologue.
later
It's
than that.
Kelsier.
Kelsier
let's
would kill
first-
them later.
The first Vin chapter. Okay.
Okay. On that wonderful note, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Balls17chart.com for all your news, theories, discussion, character or otherwise, about Oathbringer, whether you liked it or not. Please post. And join us in Discord. You can always talk with all of us there. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Dalinar is the GOAT.
Bye.
Call.